access it centrally.
There it is.
All right. So in my best laid plans, I was going to have a slideshow for this. I ran out of time, so we're going to wing it a little bit. I do have an outline, and I'm going to do my best to stay to it. So let's start by talking about WordPress themes. So when you hear, I would like to get a little input from you all. When you hear WordPress theme, what do you think of? And you can shout it out, or you can put something in the chat. That would in any of those would be fine, and then we'll look at what you all say, and then I can like bring it back together into a bit of a definition. So I'm seeing customizer. That is definitely a component of themes traditionally. Let's see what else we got. Somebody else's design. It could be, it doesn't necessarily have to be. The plugin that displays information on the site. That would be an interesting one to discuss, because themes and plugins are actually separate mechanisms at the WordPress level. So while they share a lot of commonalities, what a theme is doing is really all about the front end, all about what displays on your website for visitors to see. The thing that makes my site pretty, I like that one. Hopefully pretty, or attractive, or just informational, or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. It's all about what the external of it is. So I see too complicated menus in the dashboard, and then in the customizer too. Yes, so it is true that everything has always been kind of decentralized. You have your content that you create, you have your menus you create, you have your widgets that you create, and then you have the customizer that may have various settings for your theme. And then some themes might even have their own control panel, or several control panel screens that you might use to customize the theme. I see a starting point for website design. That is a good way of describing it. If you're going to take a theme that exists and then maybe modify it to suit your needs, it could be a starting point. Design and also further features of a WordPress site. Yes, so there are often themes, more and more as time has gone on, that functionality starts to roll into the theme. Which could be good or bad depending on what type of functionality it is. But yeah, but largely design. So I see a ready-made template for a site. Yeah, so it is the general idea is your theme is going to be a collection of files that determine what the site's going to look like. Let's see, fun designs, so I don't have to make it. They could be, although the whole point of this social learning space is to learn to make it. At least maybe not the design so much, but the building blocks and what you would use to create a theme. I see basic plan, so I guess maybe like the idea behind your site, what will get it started. That your content can plug into is the way that I understand that. Although if I'm wrong about that, please let me know. Better design than I can manage on my own, but customizable. That's a really good one. And I think block theming as we go forward is going to lend itself to that, because while you have that starting point, there's going to be ways to modify it and make it your own. Let me see, get a site up quickly. Sure. And let's go ahead and move forward. So we've got all of these ideas that what you think of when you hear WordPress theme. So let me just, we're going to break it down to a little bit of a technical explanation, and then we'll move forward into like how we would get started. So my goal by the end of this hour is that we will have looked at some kind of code, just a little, not a lot, but just a little bit so that you can say, oh, I can change a color on this theme that exists. Or I can, and we're actually going to create what's called a child theme, which means that you have a theme it's like branching off from an existing theme, so you can start to make it your own. So what a WordPress theme is it's like the layer of your site that is visible to others. It's going to be your styles. It's going to be the structure of how your content is going to be displayed. In WordPress terms, you may have sometimes heard the term loop. So you have the loop that actually pulls the content in from the database and displays it based on basically the instructions that your theme has given to it. And we're going to be doing the same basic idea in a block theme. So traditionally, and we are starting to move into a time where we have different types of themes. So we have the themes that we've always had are called, we're calling classic themes usually. So these are made from PHP and JavaScript and CSS, and you have to have some understanding of how to code those in order to really work with them. We're starting to move more into, at the other end of the spectrum, this new paradigm is going to be called block themes. And these are themes that are made almost entirely of blocks. So we're going to be building some blocks in WordPress, and then we're going to pull the code out for those and then put it into some files so that it can be used as your theme. And a block theme can actually have no PHP at all. There are a couple of files, but they might not have anything in them. So, and we'll start to look through the required, what's required for WordPress to recognize something as a theme, or to recognize it as a block theme, and we'll start as simple and minimal as we can. So in between those two, we have what are called universal themes and hybrid themes. A universal theme is going to support both the customizers that we are familiar with and also block theme elements. So it's going to, like, you can use it either way, either as a block theme or as a classic theme. And if we hear any, while you're free to share through voice, if there's some background noise, we might just mute you, and then just so that we can not have the distraction of the extra sound. All right, so so we talked about hybrid themes, or universal themes rather, that would have like components of both. And then you have a hybrid theme, and a hybrid theme is going to be a classic theme that also has some pieces of a block theme, like, for example, a Theme.json file, which is something that became available in WordPress 5.8 to be able to start to set some presets and defaults for your block editor, the way your block editor behaves. So, so that is the basics of what WordPress theming is. While WordPress without a theme is a really good way to create content, the theme is really the piece that most sites are going to be relying on to actually get that out to where other people can see that content. And now we're not going to discuss things like headless WordPress, where you might be taking the WordPress content and pushing it out through some other medium. That is way beyond the scope of this course, though. That's why I say most WordPress sites are going to rely on a WordPress theme in order to display the content to the world. Okay, so I think that at this point, it would, if everyone is okay and there aren't any immediate questions, it would be cool to go ahead and dive into some practical application here, if that's cool with everyone. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen. It's going to look a little wonky for just a minute while I switch some stuff around. Okay. Hopefully you should see a white screen with a green sidebar. This is an application called Local, It is a freely available application provided by, it used to be called Flywheel. I think that they kind of pushed it off on their own, but the parent company is WP Engine. And this is one of many ways that you can install a local installation of WordPress on your own computer that you can use for sandboxing, experimentation, or starting locally to do a new site build. Some other examples or some other options for something similar would be like XAMPP, XAMPP, is that right? I think it is, or WAMP. Those are not specific to WordPress, but there are ways that you can install all of the pieces that you need to run as a web server to install WordPress. So out in the world, there are plenty of instructions on how to get that set up. If you just search local WordPress installation, lots of options will show up. Today, we're just going to use local because I found it to be the most painless way to get multiple WordPress sites running on your computer. So let's go ahead and dive in. So right now, let me back up just a little bit, and we're going to go ahead and walk through the process a little more slowly so that you can see how this works. So I'm going to go to localwp.com, and this is the website where this app is available. It is available for the first thing, when you hit the download button on the homepage there, you can see that we have Mac, Windows, or Linux. So it is cross-platform compatible. So regardless of what operating system you're using on a desktop computer, you should be able to find one that will suit you. I'm using a Mac. They do request that you at least enter an email address. This is not like going to link your computer to that email address in any way, but if you're ever concerned about any privacy stuff, then I would recommend contacting the company that provides the tool. And so then once you say get it now, it would download the file, and then you would install it just like any other application according to the way that your operating system works. So I have actually already installed it. I use it frequently, so you can see I have a lot of sites already set up on my computer, and I'm going to go ahead and set up a new one right now. And the way that I do that is down here in the lower left corner. I'm going to click Add Local Site. And I'm going to give it a name. We're going to call it Block Theme SLS. And I'm just going to use the preferred settings and then click Continue. And I'm going to put in a username and a password. And then I'm going to put in an actual email address. You can leave it as the one that shows up there. It won't actually go anywhere, but if I were to ever take the site and launch it, then it's helpful to have the real email in there. Okay, and then we can click Add Site. Now on a Mac, it does ask you to put in your admin password to enable it, which you won't see on your screen because it's actually making changes to your computer to install WordPress and all of the web server components. So it takes just a few seconds for WordPress to install. Now, what's going to install is the most recent version of WordPress as of today, which is 5.8.3. Because the things that we're talking about today are actually related to WordPress 5.9, we're going to have to install something extra in order to make it work so that we can continue forward and talk about this. Excuse me. All right. So the only thing I usually change in here right off the bat is like I set one-click admin to on, and then it's going to set the my username that I created as the admin for that. And what that allows me to do is just to click this admin button here, and it's going to open up my browser right to the dashboard. I don't have to log in. So in a local environment, that's pretty handy, especially when you're switching between a lot of different sites. Another thing to know is that the fastest way to access the files for this installation is up here, just below the name of the site is this path. It says local sites, block theme SLS, and then there's a little circle arrow next to it to the right. If you click on that, it's going to open up your file browser. Get that where you can see it. Okay. And then you can go ahead and navigate into all of the files that make this WordPress site work, which in this case would be app, public, and then you're in the WordPress directory where you can see all the things. If you're familiar with WordPress files, you can start to navigate from there. And now, naturally, if you would never want to edit anything at this level, but once you get into WP-content, this is where plugins and themes live. I see a question. Let's go ahead and see. Is there a way to get older versions of WordPress for local work, like to match a live version? So yes, but you would probably not install it in this way. I don't know. Let's just find out. Under advanced options. So if you have an old version from an earlier, like I have, there's this thing called blueprints here. And this is very specific to this particular way of installing local sites. But if you have an older site, you can like retain it and then use it again in the future. So I have one for WordPress 5.7 here. But typically you would not use a tool like this to create a new site based on an old version of WordPress. So, but you can always go to wordpress.org, locate the version that you want and download it, and then replace all of the files for that version. So that would be one way to work around that. Or to download an existing site from wherever it's hosted and then install it that way. So that's a little outside the scope of what we can talk about today, but it's a great question. All right. Let's see. Okay, the next question is what PHP versions are available? It changes over time. So right now it can go back as far as 5.6.39. I do not recommend that. It's unless your host is not supporting newer versions, that version of PHP is deprecated, sunset, no longer supported. So but I also see 7.3.5, 7.4.1 and 8.0.0. So these are the currently available versions of PHP, but as point releases are released, like that 7.3 could go to 0.6 at some point. I don't know. I don't know exactly how they determine which versions of PHP to include, but these are the 4 that are available right now. If you are working on a site that you're going to move up to a live environment at some point, matching the PHP version as closely as possible is a good idea so that you don't get any incompatibility problems. Let's see. And then, yeah. So once we are in, so I showed you a little bit about how to find your files here. We are going to be working in the themes directory. And right now, this is a brand new WordPress installation that just has the stuff that came with WordPress out of the box. So we have 3 themes in here. They're all the 20 themes. And what we're going to do is install a new theme called 2022, which is going to be the new default theme in WordPress 5.9. I've already downloaded, or I zipped up a copy of it because it's not really readily available just yet. If anyone's interested in today's copy, it might have bugs in it because there's still, it hasn't been released yet. So there are still things being worked out. I'd be happy to share this zip with you. The way that I got it actually was to install the WordPress beta, the release candidate that is out right now, because in about 2 weeks, we're going to be seeing that new release. And it was included in that. So then I just zipped up the directory. So
Okay, so this is a step that won't be needed soon when it's available in the theme directory.
correct. Yes.
Cool.
So this
Thank
is
you
the
for that clarification.
temporary step. All right. So I'm going to open up my WordPress site, which just loaded into the wrong place. Hold on one second. Okay. Let me see if I can get it to load it to the right place now. May not want to do this. All right, it's going to make me log in. The reason it's making me log in is because I was trying to get it into this guest view that's a little simplified compared to my full browser. All right, so we're in the back end of my WordPress site. There are two ways that we could continue forward. One way would be to install the beta of or the release candidate of WordPress 5.9. The other way is to install the Gutenberg plugin. And the Gutenberg plugin is always going to be a little bit further ahead than what you're going to get in WordPress, because we have new releases coming out every 2 weeks in that plugin. It's stable to use. If you're curious about what's coming up in the block editor specifically, the Gutenberg plugin is a good way to get a little sneak peek into that. And some people do use it on their live sites. In fact, WordPress.com actually runs, and all of the WordPress.org sites are always running the Gutenberg plugin so that all of the latest stuff is available. So let's go ahead and install that plugin. Because this is WordPress 5.8, we would not be able to install a block theme currently. So I'm going to go ahead and install Gutenberg and activate it. And then the next thing I'm going to do is install that theme that I already downloaded so that it displays as an available theme here. And I'm going to click Add New. And the theme is not currently in this directory that you can search through. Before I upload it, though, let me just show you that you can actually access block themes that are in the repository by going to the feature filter and then choosing full site editing in the features option, and then click apply filters. And this will bring up the block themes that are available right now. And it's a growing number. There are quite a few now. It's fun to see that list grow. So some of these are created by companies that are starting to think ahead. Some of them are individuals that are just making a contribution back to the community. This is a favorite of mine. If you've been around WordPress for a long time, you might remember this blue headered theme called Kubrick. That was the default theme, I think, in like WordPress 1.2 or something. Pretty cool. So somebody has actually gone and made a block theme version of this. Riyadh is one of the core developers on the Gutenberg project. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and upload the theme that we actually want, which is 2022. Just go ahead and walk through the steps to upload that. And once that file name is showing on the screen, then I'll click install now. Okay. Now this theme is not the one that we're going to activate. We are actually going to create a child theme based off of this. So we're not going to activate this right now. But what we will do is we will start to create the files that we need. And we'll also look at what is in the 2022 theme directory, so you can see what files are needed in order for a block theme to be created. So let's go ahead and switch over to that. So I'm back over here in local, and I'm going to click on the navigator link here to open up my file navigator. And then I'm going to go into app, public, WP content, themes. Clear off a couple of things here. And you should be able to see that now the 2022 theme is actually present. So the next thing I'm going to do is create a new folder called 2022 child. And for right now, that directory is completely empty. We are going to add some files to it, but before we do that, let's go ahead and start looking through the files that are in that 2022 theme. And before I do that, let's just see if there are any questions that we can go through. Let's see. So to clarify for myself, this process is for block themes. We covered classic, hybrid, and universal themes earlier. So this is specifically for creating a block theme, correct? Yeah. Yes, and WordPress 5.9 RC2 is available right now. Not good to install that on a live site. It's a little too soon for that, but for testing purposes and experimentation, absolutely.
I'm getting some background noise, Daisy. I'm trying to find who that might
If
be.
you want, you can mute everyone and then I'll unmute myself. I'll never find that either.
I always struggle to find it.
I got it. Okay. I think I muted everyone. So Sarah, you can unmute yourself if you like. Okay.
All good. Thank you.
So if you have something to say now, please go ahead and unmute yourself or type it into the chat. All right. And where was I? Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is how to get into these files so that we can actually see the code that's in them and edit. What we're going to use is what's called an IDE. You might just call it a text editor. The one that I'm going to be using today is called Visual Studio Code. And it's a Microsoft app. It's free to use. It is cross-platform compatible. But if you have another text editor that you prefer or an IDE that you prefer, the one thing I would say is that when you are working with block themes and particularly the theme.json file, having something that supports a schema for autocomplete is super helpful. And I will show you what that looks like shortly. I think that PHP Storm or WebStorm are two that those are a commercial app. Sublime is popular or has been popular in the past, but really any IDE or text editor, the main thing is that it should be a plain text editor, so it's not adding any formatting into your stuff.
Okay, so before we get into text editors, you made the new folder 2022 and it was 2022 child, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me, just for my sake, because I'm new to this, it's so exciting, what this folder is going to do and why we're making it?
Okay, so this is going to be where we place our custom files that will extend and modify the 2022 theme. So because the 2022 theme is a core theme, it is a widely distributed theme, it will be something that would update automatically from the WordPress repository. And you would not want to edit it directly because the next time you update your site or if you get an update your theme link, what it'll do is it'll delete all of your changes. So you should avoid editing a theme that was provided to you by someone else, like whether you purchased it from a company or if you downloaded it from the WordPress site. either of those scenarios specifically, editing the files directly without making it like making it a unique thing that wouldn't get triggered by an update process is pretty dangerous. So I've had when I was doing client work, I had people like completely destroy their sites because they hit update without realizing that it was going to be a problem. So what we are doing is making a child theme. So instead of editing the 2022 theme directly. So that will allow us to extend the 2022 theme without actually modifying it directly. So that was a question, then why not use the child theme as usual? And that's what we will be doing today. It's not the only thing, and it is actually possible, especially with block themes. This would be harder with a classic theme with all the PHP files, but you could actually start out a block child theme that eventually has everything it needs to just operate independently from its parent theme. So, and at that point, you have a custom theme that you created yourself, and it's no longer attached to any other theme. So, but one of the things that I think is kind of cool about this is you can actually build it up slowly. So you can start with everything that came with the 2022 theme, and then slowly kind of replace it with your own code. Okay, so I'm gonna move over to my IDE, Visual BSC, you might call it. Some people, if it will actually let me load it, because this window is over my. One moment, please. Try it over here. The transcript is loading right over the button on my computer, and it won't let me interact with this. Let's see. I don't know where it went. Ah, here it is. Okay, I'm gonna open a new window. Okay, so here we are. I apparently have an update. Okay, this is Visual Studio. Or I think, I don't remember if it's VS Code, Visual Studio Code. And what I will do is go up to File and then Open Folder. And then I'm actually going to go find that site that we just created. Which was called Block Theme SLS. And so I'm going to go ahead and navigate in to WP content, then themes. And now I'm going to open the 2022 directory because I want to kind of go through what is in this because it's kind of like the building blocks of a theme that we're going to go through. So over on the left here is this list. These are all of the files and directories that are in this theme. The first two, assets and ink, these are not required directories. They are just where the developers of this theme put things that were custom to this theme. So in this case, it would be fonts, images, and videos, and then block patterns. So those two directories would not necessarily exist in another block theme. There are a few files, if you're familiar with WordPress theming already, you would recognize functions.php, you would recognize index.php, readme.txt, this file here, let's just get this one out of the way. This is what, you might not have this file if you're just making a theme for yourself, but if you were going to submit your theme to the WordPress theme directory, then you would need this theme because it's kind of what shows all of the information about your your theme to that system so it can display in the directory, both within WordPress and also on the WordPress.org site. A screenshot, this is what's going to show within WordPress as a preview of what this theme is going to look like. And then style.css is a required file that is going to, at its most basic, what it's going to do is tell the WordPress that this is actually a theme. So, and while there are a lot of fields up here in this commented out area that WordPress uses to display information about the theme, the one required one is the theme name. There will be a second required line in our child theme, which will be the template name, which is going to basically tell WordPress that our active theme is a child theme of this 2022 theme. And we'll be doing that shortly. And then there are two directories and one file that are new and specific to block themes. But also could be put into a hybrid or universal theme. One is the theme.json file. And what the theme.json file is, you'll either hear theme.json or theme.json, and I use both of them. So I don't, there's no rhyme or reason to why, but
So
this
speaking,
file,
oh,
yes.
go ahead. I was going to say, speaking of theme.json, someone asked a great question. Does the child theme that we just created, will that override the current theme's theme.json file?
It will. So there has been some work done to kind of like override sections and not just override it wholesale. So as far as I understand, and I've only done a little bit of experimentation. If you have specific sections that exist, for example, one of the things that you can do is do presets for colors. So if you have a duotone section in your child themes theme.json, it will ignore the duotone section from the parent theme. But all of the rest of it would still come over. That has been what's been in my minimal testing so far. So there is some merging that happens, but it's a bit limited. So what we'll probably do is just copy the theme.json file from our parent theme right into our child theme and then start editing it. Okay, so we'll come back to that accessibility question. I think it's a good question. It can that could be a big discussion. All right, so that's the theme.json file. And so just to be clear, what the theme.json file is there to do is to create presets, which are things going to be like selections that you can make within the block editor, like your color palette, duotone options, maybe font families that you're going to declare. It could be like font sizes that you want to have set up. So anything where there might be multiples that you can select from would be in the preset. Then there are your supports. And these are basically on-off switches. And they're about features. So you could have let me see if I can find one in here. Usually it's going to be a true or false in it. You might enable or disable the custom color palette, or you might disable the option for a content creator to change the color at all. It might enforce the color that you selected as the theme creator. So there are these toggles that you can include. And then the last part, or the next part that we'll get to hopefully in the course of this series, is styles. And what these are not necessarily directly CSS, but what they are default design control settings. So for example, Let me see if I can find a good example here. In settings, there's styles. Here we go. So let's say the color styles. The settings for color are going to be applying this background color, which was created in the settings section with a hex code. We're going to say that by default, I want the background color to be this color right here. And I want the text color to be this color right here. So we can see that, and what we named them up above was background and foreground. So they're semantic based on how these colors are being used, not necessarily what color it is.
Okay, so to clarify, because I'm looking at that, I don't see a hex code like 000 is black, right? So what we did earlier in the settings section, which is up top, is we said, hey, that's where the color is, and we want to pull from that color.
Right. So
Okay.
up here so it's a little hard to see because there's a lot going on in here. I can try to collapse some stuff. So we have settings. And then within settings, we have color. So you can see that these are nested. So these brackets are like, okay, inside of this is another set of things. And this file is, if you're familiar with JSON at all, think of it as like a structured format to put like a key, a label, and its value. So here we have appearance tools is the key and the value is true. So there's like it is coding, but it's not coding in the sense that you're going to be actually like executing functionality. It's all about being a settings file. There are a lot of these kinds of files formats out there, but JSON is a very common one, and it's the one that we're using for WordPress, at least in this case. So to get back to the colors, we have this palette, and then we have a list of colors that have been created. And you can see foreground is 0000000. Background is FFF. That's black and white. Those are the two easiest text codes to memorize because it's the beginning and the end of the hexadecimal counting. So this is where these colors are declared or created. And then what is going to happen is when I go back down to some place where these colors are used, like here, a variable is created. And what is going to happen is this background and this variable, which has this name that's generated based on what was done above. This is generated by WordPress. You just need to know how the naming convention works. You don't have to create it any further than just naming it background. It will basically create this variable in a file that will load into the front end of your site and also in the block editor, so that color can be used in many places. So what it's doing is we've declared this color in one place, and now we can use it in a lot of places. And if we were to want to change that color to something different, all we would have to do is change it in one place, and then everywhere it's referenced will automatically update, as opposed, in classic theming previously, and this is for me going back a long time, you would maybe put your color scheme all sprinkled throughout your CSS file. And they're called CSS custom properties. It's native to your browser. Most modern browsers support it. It is a pretty good standard. It's a little bit like a native version of Sass, if you're familiar with that, where you can kind of set up all of your variables and then feed them in to be used in different ways. So it's definitely a time saver.
Okay, so for me, looking at this, I get really excited about it. Would it be possible for us to look at a line of code and look at what it looks like on the front end, and then come back in here and change it to a completely different color, and then see what
Yes.
that did. Let's like, that would help me conceptualize what I'm doing.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump forward a little bit. Before we do that, I just wanted to look at two other things. That is these other directories. And we went a little deeper into Theme.json than I really meant to. I apologize if I've completely confused anyone. I think that we can loop back and some of it will begin to make sense. This is the one area out of everything in block theming that becomes a bit of a challenge in terms of understanding what you're seeing and formatting it correctly. But once we start actually typing stuff in, I think you'll see that there are some shortcuts that will be helpful. The next section is going to be parts and templates. These are directories that are in your block theme. And inside these directories are HTML files. The templates directory are going to be what used to be like your index.php file and your single.php file. And it's all of the actual like full templates that make up any view on your site. So an example would be the home.html file. What we see in here is all HTML markup. We have these comment lines. These are, this is a comment, HTML comment that contains information that WordPress is going to use to know what to do with what's inside of it. So this example at the top is a template part, and wherever you see WP colon and then a word, these are blocks. So we have a template part block, we have a query block, a group block. And if we load this code right into a block editor, it's going to magically turn into blocks, which is pretty cool.
So is this where we would go to define a new custom block for, say, the home page, that template?
It would be where you configure an existing block. So we are not creating new blocks. The blocks are loaded either by core or by a plugin.
Okay.
But what we are is using the blocks that are on your site.
Thank you.
So in this case, we're going to be sticking to core blocks, the blocks that come with WordPress out of the box. But this is what a block looks like at the code level.
Just a question real quick. This is Chris from
Sure.
Iowa. So this is home.html. Does this define a whole page template?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so rather than having like a index.php and doing like your head stuff, like you would place your head stuff in here instead?
Actually the head stuff would be handled in functions.php. Or
okay,
you could have your header.html could have some, but it's all going to be HTML. So if you're working with PHP or anything, then it's not going to be in here. But you can always, so in functions.php, if you needed to add something to hook into the head, this is where you would do that with a function. So that's a time where you would be using PHP with a block thing.
thank you. Is this new to WordPress 5.9, or is this something that's already supported and this theme happens to have those as part of it?
So block theming, in the way that we're seeing it here, will be 5.9 or
Okay.
with the Gutenberg plugin.
Thank you.
Sure.
So just a time warning, we have about 10 minutes.
Okay. We'll see how far we get.
We will. And we're going to have another of these series probably next week, I'd imagine. So anything we don't get to today, we will pick up and this will be recorded. So you can always review.
Sure. All right, so in this file here, index.html, we have a template part. In classic themings, we would probably have template part files that would be our header. We might register sidebars. We might add a footer. Here, what we're doing is we're creating a block that becomes the header, that becomes maybe a sidebar, that could become a footer. And then you can have multiple versions of them. So in the parts directory, we have, let's look at header.html. This is everything that comes in with the header. Now, this is not the head section of your site, which is not visible to the front end. This is starting from the body tag, basically. So inside the body tag, this is where it would begin. And we've got a group that loads in some content, an image, maybe a menu, a logo. It's going to be a starting point that then can be edited further. All right. So now that we've gone through that, let's actually make something. So I'm going to open another folder here, and I'm going to open up that child theme folder that's completely empty right now. Okay. And did I just lose everything that I had? I did. All right, let me see. I want to also keep that other one open. So what I want to do is grab this theme.json file and paste it over into that other theme. Okay, so I did a copy paste from one directory into the other directory. And now the theme.json file from that other theme has just been copied into this directory. This is not enough for it to be a theme yet. So what we need to do to make it a theme is add a style.css file. I am not going to actually add any CSS to this, but I am going to add the header. So let's see. I should have gotten this ready ahead of time.
It's helpful for me to see your process, so thank you.
All right, so we're going to start by opening up the comments, preferably, and that's just a / and a star. And then I'm going to give it a theme name, colon. And WordPress is going to use this to say, oh, there's a theme name. This is what this theme is called. And I'm going to call it 2022 child. And then in order for it to actually see that this is a child theme of the 2022 theme, I need to give it a template name as well. And that's template colon. And it's going to be the name of the directory that the other theme is in, which is 2022. And then I'm going to close this comment out and save that file. And now when I go to the site and I go to themes, I can see 2022 child with no image. So we can see 2022 is here with that screenshot image. We didn't put a screenshot image, so there's nothing showing here, but the theme is here. And if I did my job right, we can activate it. And if I go to the front end, find where that tab went, then what we see is exactly the same as the 2022 theme. So we copied the theme.json file over from the parent theme. So it's exactly the same. Everything else is being pulled in from that parent theme. So now if I go in to create some content, because I want to show you a before and after real quick. I can edit an existing post. And let's say I was going to say, okay, this text here, I want to change the color. And so we have a text color. And you can see the default colors are provided by Core. They're just some general colors. And then the theme colors are the ones that are in our theme.json file. So we've got, if you hover over it, you can see the names: foreground, background, primary, secondary, and tertiary. So right now, the foreground color is this text color, and it's black right now. So what I would like to do is we're going to just pick a random hex color. .co. I'm not very creative with this, so I'm gonna get somebody else. I'm gonna use a generator to find a color. Okay, that looks good. So let's try this dark sienna color. So I'm gonna copy this hex code out. And then I'm gonna go back over to my Theme.json file. And where we've declared that or we've named that color foreground here, that's currently black, I'm going to swap that out with this sienna color. And I'm going to save that. And hopefully what will happen is when I reload, oh, that's the foreground color that just changed. And it actually did change the text also. So now I've just swapped out everywhere that foreground color was used. I've swapped it out with a different color across the entire website.
That is really cool, Daisy. Thank you so much for that. Now we have about 3 minutes left. I want to make sure we honor everyone's time. We do have some questions if people wanted to stay a little bit later. Do you have time to do that, Daisy?
I do, yes, absolutely.
Okay. And again, if anybody needs to jump, we will be recording this and providing a link probably in the meetup comments. So yeah, is there anything else you want to wrap up with? And then we can address some of the questions that were asked.
Nope, I think feels like a really good start for today. We created a child theme. It may seem very simple, but there's a lot that you can do once you have that starting point.
Okay, so let's see. We should roll back into it. So the first question that was asked that we said we get back to was about the accessible theme. If you start with an accessible theme, you start experimenting, could you inadvertently break that, or would the pieces take priority of the former theme?
So it depends.
Okay.
Accessibility is a complex a thing. It's not quite as simple as just it's going to be accessible. But as Sally just said in the comments, accessibility is a content issue. The majority of your accessibility is going to be in the way you create your content. There are some things that would be done by your theme, like a skip header or skip to content link or something like that. But most of your accessibility issues are going to be in your content, things like whether or not you should be using an alt text. And there are a lot of them. That is just one example of one accessibility thing that could easily be broken at any point while you're creating your content.
Yeah, and accessibility is one of those that's always changing. So it's kind of a moving target, and we should always working to be better with that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The next question is, where would you define new custom blocks?
Defining new custom blocks should be done in a plugin and not in your theme.
Good to know. Okay, so that's another great social learning space right there. I love it.
Absolutely. And don't create a block if you can create a block pattern or a block variation instead, which are both great options.
That's a great
Those are also great SLSs.
Yes, we should remember this because that's great. And then some of the settings from Bootstrap, like primary and secondary.
We are not using Bootstrap directly in this. There might be some things that are reminiscent of it, but it is definitely not built on Bootstrap.
Okay, thank you. And then if you use a block theme, do we still have to use editor style?
No, you do not, because all of those styles are actually coming in from your Theme.json file. So a lot of things that we kind of had to like pull together into your functions.php file or by enqueuing scripts, a lot of that heavy lifting is being done by Theme.json. So if you like put in your styles that something is going to be a color, it will happen on both the front and back end. And the actual code that makes that happen on the front end is not the same as on the back end, but the core developers of the Gutenberg project have worked really hard to make them look as similar as they possibly can. The idea is that you were trying to both make that editor usable in terms of like having your places, knowing where you can add new blocks and to be able to see what blocks are available, and also to have some idea of what that post or page is going to look like when you hit publish. So trying to keep those styles very similar. It was very difficult in the old days when we had the classic editor, and if you wanted to style something the way that it looked on the front end, it was a process. So I think that it's only improving. It's getting much easier to keep the back end and the front end looking more similar.
I think that's what's most important. A lot of people talk about how, you know, things keep changing and why all the changes. And I think that the idea is to lower the barriers to make it easier for people. So that's great.
Yeah, and just so you can see, we're trying to narrow the number of places that you would have to go in order to work with your content. With full-site editing, you would go into the template editor and edit your header and your footer on the same page, and also if you had a sidebar, you would do it all from within the same interface.
That's so cool. Awesome. The next question was about, where was it? I just lost it scrolling. The 2022 theme that's going to be available relatively soon. Where can we find that now? We're not going to be providing it, but where did you find that theme to download?
So the way that I got it, so well, there are a couple things you can do. If you go to github.com/WordPress, and then I think 2022. See if I got that right. I did. Yay me. Okay. This is the repository where this theme is being developed. And then it gets merged into core because it is actually part of WordPress once 5.9 goes out. You could download this. This is an unbuilt copy of it though. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in here that is not really part of the final theme. So that's why I didn't do that, because I didn't want to have to say, well, you can ignore this file and you can ignore this file. I wanted to just get the files that will ultimately be there. And somebody just said you can get it from wordpress.org/news. Okay, that is where you can download the release candidate of WordPress, which contains the theme. Yep. So you could extract the directory out from there. I was working locally, and it was the fastest way for me to grab it was to install the RC on my computer and go find the directory and then zip it, and then I could re-upload it, or just I could have copied the directory over. But since I was wanting to demonstrate installing the theme from a file, that's what I did.
Okay, perfect. All right. I think I've hit everyone's questions that were not also answered in chat. So we're a little over time, not too much. Awesome. Well done. I'm so pleased. Yeah. So Daisy, did you want to say any final words while we wrap up?
Wow. Thank you all for coming. This has been great. I really appreciate all your questions. Thanks for being engaged, and it's been a lot of fun, and I hope that everyone will join in on the next edition of the series where we'll take it a little bit deeper.
Perfect. And of course, you can always learn more about things at learn.wordpress.org, and keep an eye on Meetup or on the learn.wordpress.org events calendar for the next in this series. Thank you all so much for your time. All right, I'm going to stop the recording. All right.